Ever feel like you're doing all the right things and still wondering why your body feels off? You eat well, you train hard, your labs say you're fine, but deep down you know something's slipping. You're not alone and you're not crazy. I'm Daniel Rasmussen, founder of Echelon Center for Longevity, and I've spent 2 decades helping high performers like you to reverse aging, reignite vitality, and finally get answers. On Unbreakable Vitality, we go upstream. We talk peptides, stem cells, precision diagnostic testing, reversing the age of your arteries, all the innovative science-based tools to take back your health span so that your next decades are your best yet. Because aging is real, but decline is optional. Welcome back to Unbreakable Vitality. Before we dive in, I want to share something huge, something that marks a whole new era in how we approach longevity, age reversal, and regenerative care. In 2026, we're launching Ageless Future, a visionary collaboration that spans coast to coast, redefining the future of healthcare. And we're not just launching clinics, we're launching something experiential, the Ageless Future Longevity Summit. Monthly live events here in Seattle in our local clinic location where health meets strategy, science, soul, heart connection, and longevity, where it all becomes real. So if you are ready to be part of this next wave, this next movement, it's not a trend, this is a movement. To not just learn about the future of medicine and where it's heading, but experience it in real time. Head to agelessfutureseattle.com and check out what we are building. Trust me, you'll want to be in early. All right, let's get to today's episode. Segment 1. We're going to talk about cholesterol today and the history of cholesterol and the myths surrounding it. So, most of you out there have spoken with your GP or your primary care doctor, and you've been told to fear cholesterol. It's been labeled the villain in every heart attack horror story since the 1950s. What if I told you, though, cholesterol might not be the bad guy? You actually need cholesterol. It's actually essential. Well, let's go into a little history here. First, it began with a scientist named Ancel Keys and the infamous 7 countries study, which cherry-picked data to link fat and, by association, cholesterol with heart disease. The food industry jumped on that bandwagon, and so did pharma. They saw an opportunity. The low-fat craze took over America, and suddenly your total fat and your total cholesterol score became your absolute nutritional scarlet letter. Then came the statin explosion. They had a discovery of this compound called statin that was formulated from an ancient Chinese medicine called red rice yeast. So what they did is they took out the active compound out of red rice yeast, which is a phytonutrient. It has all the synergistic blend to help modulate and control cholesterol production. So they took that natural product from traditional Chinese medicine and made a chemical version of it, a synthesized chemical called Lipitor, or statin medications. So these drugs are specifically designed to lower cholesterol across the board. And how they do it? They suppress liver function because cholesterol is made in the liver, okay? So especially targeting the LDL, low density lipoprotein. And so for decades, that was the protocol. High cholesterol equals statin equals safety. And this has been one of the most profitable medications in history. And the science, there's no incentive for medicine to catch up with the science because big pharma is involved and they want to put as many people on as many medications for the rest of your life so they can profit off of your naivety and your declining health as it gets worse, because it's not treating cardiovascular disease. All it does is suppress cholesterol. And very large studies show that two groups of people, control group and the treatment group, those that took statins definitely had lower cholesterol, no doubt about it. But both groups, did it have an impact on their reduction of cardiovascular events? Nope. In fact, the group that took the statins actually had a slight increase in cardiovascular events. So, what does that study, if we look at the common denominator being whether or not cholesterol has an effect on cardiovascular disease, that study should have, and this is a study that goes back to the early 2000s. So this is not a new study. This has been out for 25 years. That study concludes that cholesterol is not what causes cardiovascular disease and heart attacks. It's pretty clear. So what is it? Well, if you're going to stick around and listen to the whole episode, you're going to know more about cholesterol than most of your GPs and PCPs and cardiologists. So here's the thing. In that study, the correlation was never causation. That's, at the end of the day, that's the tagline. Correlation does not mean causation. So not everyone with high cholesterol dies of heart disease. And not everyone who dies of heart disease had high cholesterol. In fact, more than 50% of people hospitalized for heart attacks have normal LDL. So let that sink in. Cholesterol is essential. It's essential for hormones, for cell membranes, for brain function, for your heart, cardiac tissue, and more. So what matters isn't just how much you have, but what type you have and what state it's in, and your ratios between your triglycerides and the cholesterol number, and whether it's showing signs of damage. Damaged cholesterol is what we call oxidized cholesterol. So there is a difference between total cholesterol and the fractions and the ratios. And that's what you should be looking at instead, not just total cholesterol. That's such an oversimplification that once you hear this, you're going to be furious at why your doctor has never dug in deeper to this question. So let's talk about the numbers that your doctor obsessively watches, the total cholesterol and your LDL. So here's the truth. By themselves, they're like reading the cover of a mystery novel and thinking you know the whole plot. Total cholesterol lumps together HDL, which is the good cholesterol, so-called. LDL, bad cholesterol, and everything in between. So it tells you nothing about particle size, inflammation, or oxidation. And LDL, it's not the inherently dangerous particle. In fact, LDL plays a vital role in cellular repair and immune function. It only becomes a problem when it becomes damaged, which we call oxidized LDL. And oxidized LDL is the form that leads to plaque formation in the arteries. But how it gets there, how does the LDL get stuck in the arteries, is another question. Blood pressure, inflammation. When inflammation wrecks the inner lining of your arteries, which is called the endothelium, that is the little Teflon slick coating inside the arteries. When that breaks down from inflammation in your body, systemic inflammation, that those blood arteries, the tight junctions between the cells start to break apart, and we start to get leaky arteries, and just like leaky gut. So those little breaks or cracks that are forming, these nano-sized cracks and splits in your arteries, start to, the little LDL particles and HDL particles will come through, and they'll get lodged in those little cracks. And then they get stuck and they oxidize over time. And then your immune system tries to clean it up and brings in white blood cell after white blood cell, which accumulates. The white blood cells eat up this oxidized LDL to mitigate the inflammation damage from it. And then they get stuck. And that's how the plaque formation starts. What is upstream from that is you've got to stop the inflammation. Inflammation is what's killing you in terms of cardiovascular disease, not the cholesterol. Cholesterol is the artifact. It's like going to a site where a house just burnt down and all that's left is ash, and saying, oh, the ash is what caused the fire. Eureka. The ash is what caused the fire. No, that's the artifact. The inflammation, the fire is what burnt the house down. So most heart attacks don't happen in people with sky high cholesterol. They happen in people with unstable plaque and inflammation and poor insulin control and oxidized lipids. The problem isn't the amount of cholesterol, it's the environment the cholesterol is living in. And yet, the system still treats LDL as if it's a lone gunman with a loaded pistol. And that is so outdated science, it's not even funny. We need to look at the context, the inflammatory markers, insulin resistance, and advanced lipid data to actually understand what your risk is. And I really want to show you which labs we actually run for our clients to reveal the full picture of cardiovascular risk. These are the labs that could literally save your life. So here's your new lab playbook. The ones that tell the truth about your heart, your arteries, and your future. ApoB, apopolyprotein B. This is one of those markers that measures the number of lipoprotein particles, not just the weight. Elevated ApoB is a much more accurate predictor of cardiovascular disease than LDL. Now we've got LPA. This LPA is a genetically influenced, it's sticky, it promotes clotting and plaque formation. And most doctors don't test for it. And you wouldn't know unless it's high, unless you asked. This one is mostly genetic. So if in your family, you have high ApoA, APA, you should, if you know, hey, my mom always had high cholesterol, or my dad or my grandma always had super high cholesterol, you might want to get the genetic tests and just verify. Now, cholesterol particle gets trapped in the arteries and oxidizes. This is the form of cholesterol that does the damage. It gets inflamed inside your arteries, and this is the villain. It's not LDL itself, it's when it becomes damaged. Next, you want to look at your ratios. So this is the most fundamental. If you ask your cardiologist, isn't it not just my cholesterol total number, but the ratio, triglyceride to HDL ratio? And this is a powerful metabolic risk marker. A ratio above 2 to 1 increases cardiovascular and insulin risk, insulin resistance risk. Now, what's a test that we could run besides a blood biomarker that's going to catch risk 10, 20, 30 years ahead of your cardiovascular specialist, cardiologist, decades and decades before he would even have a clue of what's going on? You got to get a carotid intima media thickness test, or a CIMT. In our clinic, we call this the heart threat scan, where we run a ultrasound along both carotid arteries, and we look for and measure the thickness of your the carotid artery walls. The thicker they are, the more advanced the aging process. The thinner they are, the younger or slower your arteries are aging. And it's a non-invasive ultrasound that is easy, it's inexpensive, insurance doesn't cover it, go figure, because it's catching cardiovascular disease 10, 20, 30 years before it will manifest into a heart attack, which if you catch it that early, you can actually do something about it and never have to go in for triple bypass surgery, which feeds a whole host of other medications that Big Pharma doesn't want that messed with. They're not into prevention, they're into react and treat after the fact. Another test you can get, maybe, I would recommend getting a CIMT at least annually, and that way you can keep an eye on that. Our longevity programs and protocols, we track, that's a measurable outcome that we track, and we watch the reversal, the age reversal on your arteries taking place as we go through our peptide protocols and our longevity programs that reduce the inflammation and help the body heal the damage to the carotid arteries. So next, once every 2 or 3 years, you want to get a calcium score, a CAC. It's better than nothing, but not as early or predictive as the CIMT, the carotid intima media thickness test. And when we run these labs, these tests, we're not looking to just guess. We're looking to build a full metabolic and vascular combination integrated risk profile that actually means something. And I want to go a little deeper on how we use these results to then design a personal prevention plan, body operating system process, without defaulting to statins or, well, let's wait and see what happens. No, none of that. We want personalized prevention, which means we stop assuming you're just like everybody else, and we look at your personal inflammatory markers, CRP, homocysteine, fibrinogen. We track your insulin levels, fasting, and postprandial. We analyze your methylation pathways to understand detox and vascular function. And yes, we do run the full lipid spectrum, not just a lazy LDL number. Then we ask, what's your lifestyle doing to your risk? Are you sleeping well? Are you eating in a way that supports your nitric oxide and vascular flexibility? Are you training with recovery in mind? And what's your mitochondrial output? Those are all important questions. And if they're not personalized to you, then you're on a one-size-fits-all cookie cutter regimen. At Ageless Future, our new initiative for 2026, we build custom protocols using peptides, mitochondrial IV therapy, detoxification support, and yes, sometimes low-dose statins, but only when the context demands it, because they are at low-dose microdosing, they can be an anti-inflammatory, but we don't rely on them, and it's a different purpose than just lowering your cholesterol. There's a no once pill fits all approach. There's only data, precision, and strategy. So now I want to talk about the real case of what happens when we ditch the cholesterol and we ditch the cholesterol myth and we start treating you, the person, not just a number. So I want to tell you about one of our clients. His name is Mark. He's 58. He's active, he eats well, and he was told for years that his cholesterol was too high. His LDL was 155, and he was prescribed a statin. But Mark didn't feel right. His energy dropped, his muscles ached, his sleep suffered. He had terrible brain fog after starting the statin. So he came to us looking for answers, not just another prescription. So we ran his advanced labs and discovered elevated oxidized LDL, ApoB protein was borderline, HS, CRP, and fibrinogen were up, inflammation markers. His CIMT showed early stage carotid artery soft plaque. So instead of defaulting to lifelong statins, we addressed the root causes. Inflammation. He had some insulin spikes. He had mitochondrial fatigue. So we used a peptide stack, precision nutrition, and lifestyle timing strategies. 6 months later, we retested him. Mark's labs improved across the board. His energy rebounded. His mental clarity returned. His vascular age improved, and not a single statin pill was required for this. That's the difference between managing numbers and actually reversing disease trajectory. And that's what we do at Ageless Future. So if this episode has opened your mind or your eyes, if you're done chasing old numbers and ready to write a new future, come and join us at one of our monthly live Ageless Future Longevity Summits here in Seattle. These live events bring together the most innovative minds and forward-thinking protocols in the world of regenerative medicine and age reversal. Visit agelessfutureseattle.com to learn more and reserve your spot. At some point, we will have access to these summits virtually, but for now, it's worth it to fly in. If you live outside of the Seattle area, fly into Seattle and get to one of our events. There's nothing like a live event. Go check it out, agelessfutureseattle.com, and see if it speaks to you. Because rounding this out for today's episode, because it's not about cholesterol, it's about clarity. And clarity is what leads to confidence, action, and unbreakable vitality. I'll see you next time.
If you're feeling like your energy, your edge, or your clarity just isn't what it used to be, you're not alone. But you're also not stuck. Every week on Unbreakable Vitality, we explore real strategies to reverse aging, reclaim vitality, and rewrite what's possible. If today's episode gave you even one insight, pass it on. Then go take the free vascular age quiz at echelon-longevity.com/quiz to see how your body's aging. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us because your future isn't on autopilot. You are building it and you're just getting started.